I'm Eddie Bromley, and this is the Book of Revelation in 5 minutes, Part 11.
Last few videos we talked about the first 6 letters that Jesus dictated to John and that John wrote and delivered to the various cities around Western Asia Minor. And you might have been wondering, as we described some of these cities, how historians know anything about them at all. Well, there's a number of answers. First of all, there's been a lot of archaeological work that has helped us to unearth and to discover a lot about the architecture and the various daily life patterns of the people who lived there. Plus, the Roman historians did a really good job describing their empire and the specific locations around there. So people like Pliny the Elder and Tacitus describe places like Laodicea, Sardis, and Ephesus. We also have a number of modern historians who've done a good job pulling information from these ancient historians, summarizing it, simplifying it. So for instance, Will Durant in his Civilization series does a very good job making this information very accessible. So does Edward Gibbons in his Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And if you just want an easy source where it's easy to find all the information just laid out in one place, Yale's Anchor Bible Dictionary set, very large set, but it just makes all the information very easy to find. And so, for instance, if you're wanting to learn about Sardis, you can go to the volume with S, and you can go straight to the section on Sardis, and you'll be able to find all kinds of information that summarizes everything that we currently know about what life was like in the first century in Western Asia Minor in the city of Sardis. So let's talk about the last letter that we find dictated in the book of Revelation. This letter is to Laodicea. Now, there are a number of things that you need to know about Laodicea. Laodicea was a very rich, influential city within the Western Asian province. It was a judicial center for the Roman Empire in that part of the world, and it was so very wealthy that when the city had an earthquake that devastated the whole city in 60 AD, they turned down empirical aid and decided to rebuild out of their own funds because they wanted to build the city back bigger and more opulent than it had been before, and they did it. It was a center of medical knowledge, and so they were especially known for an eye salve that would save vision from being lost. It was a center of textile industry. They were especially famous for black wool, and they were also a city that had a lot of wealth, a lot of gold, a lot of precious metals that went through it. So Laodicea was a wealthy place. Now, a couple things Laodicea did not have. It did not have fresh water. In Kolos, which was a city not very far from it, they were very famous for really refreshing cold water. Hierapolis, another city nearby, was especially famous for its hot springs that had healing medicinal mineral waters. The water Laodicea it had to bring in water from another place. It had yucky, nasty, unpotable water. You couldn't drink the water. It would just make you sick. And so Jesus says something to the church of Laodicea. Laodicea looks self-sufficient. It looks spiritually healthy. But in fact, it's a lukewarm, it's a wishy-washy church. It is a church that is only halfway committed to following Jesus. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to be in the world and sort of the world. And Jesus says, like the water in Kolos, you could have been very cold. Like the water of Hierapolis, you could have been nice and hot. I wish you were hot or cold, but because you are lukewarm, unpotable, I will vomit you from my mouth. Jesus says you think that you're self-sufficient because you're decked in expensive, beautiful black wool. You should buy white linen from me. He says, you think you have all the money, but I see you as spiritually poor. You think of yourself as seeing clearly. You don't. And Jesus is described in that letter as the one who is faithful and true, the one who is the true witness. And what he's getting at What he's getting at is that Jesus is not only authentic, but he sees us as we really are. And like the Laodiceans, we have a tendency to want to fake who we are spiritually. But Jesus sees through the facade. He sees through the window. He sees into our heart and sees who we really are beyond what we want others to think about ourselves. Jesus says, you haven't even really let me into your life. I stand at the door and knock, and I'd love to be invited in. Why does Jesus want to be invited in? Well, because he's the kind of God that wants to be pursued. You know, all true relationships have a reciprocal back and forth nature, pursuing and being pursued. And Jesus says, I want you to want me, even as I want you. I want you to want me, and if you would want me, I would give myself fully to you, even as I want you to give yourself fully to me. Well, I'm Eddie Brumley, and on the next episode, we'll begin looking at chapters 4 and 5. We'll do those together. See you next time.
If you like what you saw, please push the like button and be sure to subscribe.